Welcome to Barn Tech. Today I'm working on a 2009 Ford Super Duty. This thing has a 6.4 Powerstroke Diesel, which was blown when I bought it. So today I'm going to figure out what's wrong with it, and I'm going to bring you along with me. First thing I had to do, I bought a new set of batteries. So I put the new batteries in and the truck turned over, but the engine didn't start. So this is when I learn about what happens when you delete a truck and you don't put the sensors in your delete pipe. This EGT number 3 is the critical one. If this sensor is not there, your truck will start one time and then it's going to shut down and it will not start again until you clear the error code from the computer. What I had to do is I took a 100 ohm resistor and I plugged that into the 2 pins on EGT number 3. Clear the error codes and it let me crank the engine again. I've got the truck now where it will crank up, it'll drive a little bit, but it runs terrible. So I pull the oil cap off, set a shop rag on top of the oil filler cap, it blows the shop rag off the truck. I went into it eyes wide open. I knew I'm probably going to have to rebuild an engine on this thing. Hopefully it's just head gaskets. I'm back to that spot now. And the first step in that is I'm going to have to lift the cab off of the truck. All right, so here's what I figured out for how to get to the front 2 bolts that spin when you try to take the front 2 body bolts out. So I don't know if you can see, but the front 2 body bolts, the nuts aren't actually welded to the cab. There are these tabs that are supposed to hold the nut to keep it from spinning. And so what I did, I wedged a screwdriver in between the tab and the nut, or it's really more of a flange, and that allowed me to take the body bolt out. Well, that's about as redneck as you can get. I've got the cab of my truck raised up as high as it'll go to the rafters of my barn and supported with ratchet straps. And now I've pulled out the lift spring and lowered my truck down on a block of wood so that I can get the engine to roll out from underneath the cab. According to the window sticker, the truck's been sitting for about 3 years. And based on the fact that I've pulled 7 wasp nests out of it so far, I believe that. The seller told me he had loaned the truck to a friend, and the friend called him about 20 minutes later and told him that the truck was running really bad and that it started smoking, and when he pulled over, it was leaking oil all over the place. And so he had the truck towed to a mechanic, and the mechanic quoted him $18,000 to replace the engine. Well, that guy must have been a pretty good friend to loan his truck like that. But there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. The Bible tells us, greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. Based on the fact that he told me it was deleted and tuned, I assumed that his friend was driving it pretty hard and blew the head gaskets. I wasn't able to get the battery to take any charge, but the price was low enough, so I had it towed to my house. Look at all the oil in the output of that turbo. I also noticed when I took the charge pipe off that there was quite a bit of oil on the input of the turbos, so I'm going to have to look into those turbos and probably end up replacing the seals. It was leaking oil from around the oil pan seal here, and I could actually hear a whistle when my finger went over the leak. I tried removing the oil filler cap to see if that would change anything, and sure enough, the leak stopped on the oil pan when I removed the oil filler cap. So that confirmed to me that I had entirely too much crankcase pressure. So there's a couple of things that could cause this much pressure in the crankcase. One is a blown head gasket like I originally suspected, and the other is a broken piston, which I'm really hoping against. As I pulled the up pipes off, I noticed that there's a bunch of oil in the left bank manifold, but as I got to the top of the up pipe, it was dry, and so there must be oil coming out of one of the left bank cylinders. When I pulled the fuel cooler, it came with a section of curved pipe that connected the first turbo to the second turbo, and I saw that there was oil inside of both of those pipes. All right, I've got the components mostly stripped off of the head, and I believe I have the driver's side head ready to remove. All right, this is first look inside the cylinders after pulling off the left head. And what you see is I have a cracked piston. I believe this is the number 8 piston. So this is going to be a much bigger job than I had hoped. Look at that. You can see all the way through. If you look at the skirt here, you can see where it blew out the back of the piston. And this actually worked like a blowtorch on the side of the cylinder wall. I'm about to head to the machine shop, but I thought I'd show you what happens to the cylinder wall when a piston cracks. So definitely going to need to get this bored and honed. I've inspected the turbines and I don't see any evidence that chunks of piston did any damage to the turbines, so I'm fortunate that way. I also figured out the reason that I had oil coming out of the input and output of the turbo is because high crankcase pressure doesn't allow the oil to gravity drain out of the turbo body, and so the oil makes its way out the shaft seals. So if you're looking at a truck that has really high crankcase pressure like mine, there's a good chance that you've got a hole in the piston, so make sure you take that into account when you buy it. If you've enjoyed my video, please consider subscribing, or maybe click on one of these other videos that's popping up now. God bless.